To our attendees, welcome to this workshop on biosecurity tools for preparedness and mitigation of biological threats. So I'm going to start this presentation saying that what are the first thoughts that come to our minds when we mention the word biosecurity? The term biosecurity has been linked to biological weapons and bioterrorism. However, nowadays, this term has been used widely and has included in other areas, such as research facilities. With the evolution of biosafety, the inclusion of those concepts, such as biosecurity, dramatically changed through the past of years, evolving into a more robust definition, the definition that we know today as biological risk management, biosecurity. This picture may be enough to demonstrate that in some countries, there have been more inputs for biosafety than for biosecurity. There have been more developed resources for biosafety compared with the ones assigned to biosecurity. There has been more attention to biosafety rather than for biosecurity. However, it is not a matter about what percentage should receive more attention. It is about when to pay specific attention to some aspects and activities in this changing world. Originally, as I previously mentioned, biosecurity was mainly used to refer about the control and restricted use of biological weapons. The first definition of biosecurity was created by the Belgian Biosafety Server and defined as the prevention of the misuse through loss, death, diversion, or intentional release of pathogens, toxins, and any other biological material. On the other hand, in the 80s decade, biosecurity was used as a part of the animal health and production system. Biosecurity was officially cited in PubMed in late 80s. Since that, the general uptake increased slowly with an average of 5 publications per year in the 90s decade, 127 from the 2000 to 2010, and 680 from 2011 to 2020. But have we really been democratizing the biosecurity to achieve the proposed goals? According to different studies and opinions, there have been 4 main changes that have altered the way we are now conceiving the biosecurity in biotechnology field. First, a funding landscape, which is continuously expanding. An example of this is how nowadays crossover venture capital firms, the general industry, philanthropic organizations, among others, have been trying to invest and promote biotechnology for a sustainable future. Secondly, by having more interaction between different areas, a multidisciplinary approach between life sciences and interest areas, for example, engineering, informatics, and AI. Third, a new interest in the topic, as we know that now we need biosafety and biosecurity for being more prepared to face the unknown. And finally, the changing world, which lead us to a globalized era. On the other hand, we can define our current situation saying that there are institutions and countries that do much with much, much with little, little with a lot, and little with little. We all know the gaps: lack of funding, lack of implementation, the changing epidemiological context, inconsistent participation in strategic meetings, the lack of support, the lack of regulations, the lack of training, and of course, the lack of an adequate attitude. But we all also know the solution. After many years of having limited information, tools, and resources, today we are facing a different area. An era with specific documents, with free resources that can be downloaded from our smartphones and translated into different languages for facilitating the learning process. However, this titanic effort will need to continue in being constantly updated, promoted, and taught in such a way that our young scientists can adapt and include them into their research activities. However, it is not a matter of having a bunch of resources now only and give access to our communities without the appropriate training and use of such a powerful resource. The use of require strengthened collaboration and interaction among different sectors at all levels, which will a greatest challenge. How are we going to evaluate the success of their use? Measuring the success of biosecurity is not different than other objectives or goals. These will require political, legislative, financial, and effective communication between all interested parties. How are we addressing some of the challenges that we are currently facing for having a better preparedness against biothreats? First, we need to talk about self-consciousness of inequality, poverty, environmental and epidemiological changes, and how novel and emerging technologies have been influencing our decisions. In the same way that we have been pushing for innovation, we need to push for security. But what other resources and tools do we have? The answer is that we need to push for creation or strengthening of strategic alliances with academia, the industry, and the intervention of the society. Not a simple intervention, but a critical intervention. For example, during the last decade, there has been more a critical examination of the role of universities in delivering responsible conduct in life sciences, and not just the scientific purposes. This has been changing from changing the traditional technology-oriented and generic innovation objectives to a better application of life sciences and ethical-oriented objectives. For that, it is required an approach that encompasses the entire academic institution, the rethinking of the curriculum, the management, community engagement, and research to be effective and balanced. Education is important for fostering research integrity. Research integrity should be available to all, and education and training approaches and goals should be tailored. On the other hand, motivating trainees and trainers is essential. According to a paper published in 2009 by Nature, there is a growing awareness of the importance of research integrity for producing high quality and relevant research, where research integrity can be defined as doing research according to high ethical, professional, and methodological standards. We have developed during the last years detailed guidance and recommendations to improve safety and disease surveillance. However, we need to keep focusing on institutional organization, central institutional organization, and field institutional organization. From a laboratory perspective, having intersectoral collaborations, and from the perspective of surveillance activities, objectives, and context of our surveillance, the data collection, the animal health investigations, risk assessments, from the perspective of the workforce, the management and training, from the perspective of a management, information system and data processing, as well as in terms of communication to strengthen the internal and external communication. So I would like to end this presentation first by thanking the organizers, but also saying that biosecurity has also been mistakenly associated with complicated instead of complex. It is complex, but it is not complicated. The pathway is now clearer as we have more resources and tools. However, the continuous need for having responsible conduct of research is essential. We want to know what resources do we have, how many tools do we have. I think that we have one powerful tool that's called education. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your time, and once again to the organizers for having me here.
Thank you, Mr. Luis. May I now take this opportunity to invite Dr. Pique, the chair of the program, and the co-chair, Mr. Anthony, to take over the moderation, please.
Thank you very much. It's time for question and answer. For those who have questions, please welcome your questions. You can now unmute your microphone so you could actually make your presentations. Questions, please. We welcome questions from the audience. Biosecurity is complex and not complicated. That is one of the things, and we must also understand what we have, the resources we have. Peculiarity of Nigeria is in the sense that Nigeria have over 200 open borders, porous borders, that immigrants are actually coming into the country, which may serve as routes for dissemination of biosecurity agents. And the universities must also know what they are doing. And growing biotechnology labs in Nigeria, how do we manage it? Please, we welcome questions from the audience so that our keynote speaker could actually address them.
So for those of us who have poor bandwidth, you can also type your questions in the chat while the chair is picking up your questions that you have asked.
Yes, you can also type your question.
I'll be watching out for questions in the chat, so you can type too. Thank you, Chair.
To the keynote speaker, if I may ask this question. There is a national news on biosecurity that the US is actually having some labs where monkeypox have been generated in Nigeria. What interest do you think Nigeria should actually pull to?
Thank you so much for that question. That's a tough one. So I think that at this point there are circulating so many news about that some labs are manipulating dangerous pathogens. I think that we need to have like a very clear communication process. And the same thing happened with the situation in Ukraine. So I would say that it is better to be informed and prepared. And this is where our researchers and scientists need to be aware of fake news. Many labs in this world are handling dangerous pathogens, but not for nefarious purposes, but for research purposes. And we are now working in a new area of emerging technologies where we are using these pathogens to cure some diseases and to cure some cancers, to mention just an example. So I would say that first of all, we need to confirm if these are fake news or not, the source of the news, and it's just a matter of being informed. Because if not, I would say, and I said that this in 2019 when the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic started, we were not just fighting a virus, we were also fighting against the human ignorance. And that is very important to fight deadly pathogens, but also to fight pandemics. I think that we need to be informed, we need to be communicated, and of course we need to transmit to our researchers, the scientific community, and the society that we are doing the things on the right way.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I would like to ask Olubunmi Negedun, can you please ask your question if you have a question, please?
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud.
All right. Good afternoon, and I'm really appreciating this FABA inauguration in the country. I want to appreciate Dr. Asadu for this great effort to make sure that at least we have their representation in Nigeria, and also been part of the team from beginning. So maybe I missed part of the presentation. I don't know somewhere if I've missed it. But I wish I could have seen something in Ogarega's slide that has to talk to us about the responsibility of the members. I think the slide was a bit silent in that regard. Is there going to be any responsibility? Well, what are we? I saw what FABA is going to do. What are the benefits? But I've really not clearly seen what is going to be our role. Are we going to have like other associations? We have NIPSA in the country. Are we going to pay a certain amount to be a member if this group is coming up in the country? Some other activities that will form, that will inform you as a member, that will make you to know that, okay, you are really in this team. So I didn't see that in the slide. It was missing, or it was silent. Let me just say that. It was a bit silent. So I wish that we should come out clearly now, so that by the time we are trying to bring up people on board to join the FABA, we should be able to say, okay, this is what it's all about. And then I also wish I could also see some clear distinction between the role that FABA will be playing as Asian support, and also the role they will also be providing directly to